Netflix's The Umbrella Academy is said to be even better than the comic book series. While the series stays pretty true to the original, they did make a few major changes. Here's a list of the biggest differences between the Netflix show and the comics. If you haven't finished the series, beware. There are spoilers ahead.
Get up, we're going.
Where?
Save the world.
Oh, is that all?
Netflix's adaptation of the Dark Horse comic book series stays pretty true to the original series created by Gerard Way and Gabriel Bay. But in order to make a 10-episode series, the show's creators had to make some significant changes to the characters, as well as the world where they reside. For instance, you won't find any wrestling machines with alien squads or a secret Eiffel Tower spaceship. The Netflix series is more grounded in reality, with a few fantastical pieces such as Pogo, the sophisticated human-like chimp, and the robot mother. But the major differences are with the characters themselves. Just like the comic series, the story begins with the spontaneous and simultaneous birth of 43 babies. Eccentric billionaire, Reginald, snags up 7 of those babies and trains them to use their powers to save the world. In both the books and the show, he's a loveless father, merely using his children as tools and weapons. His parenting skills created severe emotional trauma, which was hard for the kids to juggle as they tried to find a way to put their past behind them. Despite the setbacks, they had to work together to ensure the future of the world. The Netflix show has made some notable changes to the characters, particularly when it comes to their powers. Allison's powers have been altered slightly from the way she's presented in the comics. In the comic, Allison's words have the power to bend reality to her will. But in the show, it seems her powers are limited to controlling the behavior and emotions of others. Also, Allison isn't a famous actress in the comics. Klaus's powers have been scaled back in the show as well. In the comics, he has telekinetic abilities, but only if he's barefoot. In the show, Klaus is only able to communicate with the dead. In the comic series, The Umbrella Academy, Dallas, Klaus, Luther, and Diego jump back in time using a deceased time traveler's body so that they can help Five and Allison. But they miss their target time destination and find themselves in the middle of the Vietnam War. In the comic, Klaus opens up a bar and has a kid. Details are vague after that. In the show, however, Klaus steals Hazel and Cha-Cha's suitcase and zaps himself back in time to 1968. Similar to the comic, he still finds himself in the middle of the Vietnam War, but this time he fights for about a year and falls in love with an American soldier named Dave.
I'm Dave. Klaus.
Dave meets his demise in the war, and Klaus suffers from PTSD, which plays into his struggles with addiction in the show. The comic doesn't really touch on PTSD symptoms for Klaus, so this is an interesting deep dive into his character. In the show, Ben, or Number 6, plays a troubled character who has the ability to unleash a beast to defeat his enemies. In both the comics and the show, Ben is a mystery. We know he can pummel his opponents with monstrous tentacles, and that he seems tortured by this. The show dives into Ben's character more than the comic books ever did, but we still don't know how Ben died. Thanks to Klaus and his ability to communicate with the dead, we're able to see Ben on a regular basis, but as of right now, he seems to be more like Klaus's conscience until the season finale. We won't give too much away, but Ben is able to use his powers in the physical world thanks to Klaus's powers. In the comic, Luther's father put his human head on the body of a Martian gorilla, but in the show, Pogo injects Luther with a serum to save his life. When Luther wakes up, he has the huge, muscular, hairy torso of a gorilla. Luther's character in the show is one of a strong, golden boy with softness and vulnerability beneath the surface. This makes it all the more devastating when it becomes clear that Hargreaves sent him to the moon for no real reason. In the comics, Luther has an actual moon mission. Diego is portrayed as a rogue hero with ninja abilities and impressive knife-throwing skills. In the comics, Diego has a relationship with Inspector Lupo, a detective whose partner is a talking chimp. Lupo gives Diego information on his cases and begrudgingly assists him in his vigilante missions. But in the show, Lupo is replaced by Eudora Patch, who is Diego's ex. This is a significant shift from the comics, in which Diego was secretly in love with Vanya. In the comics, Vanya gets baited by the conductor to join the orchestra and attempts to destroy the world with their apocalypse suite. Vanya becomes the white violin, and she blows a chunk off the moon. In the show, Vanya's transformation happens at a much slower pace, and Leonard Peabody takes the conductor's place as the master manipulator who baits Vanya. But just like the conductor, Leonard meets his demise as soon as Vanya gets control of her powers. Number 5 is a time-traveling man stuck in a child's body.
Monitor all of time and space to make sure that whatever is supposed to happen happens.
Five secretly worked for an organization called the Temps Eternalis. But Netflix writers changed the organization's name to the Commission for obvious reasons. In the show, it's implied that Five assassinated JFK, but in the Dallas comic miniseries, he went rogue and tried to save the president instead. Then there's Hazel and Cha-Cha, the two sugar-addicted sociopaths who wear cartoon masks in the comics. Their presence is much larger in the show and a bit more grounded in reality. In the show, Hazel and Cha-Cha play disgruntled blue-collar hitmen who are fed up with budget cuts and bureaucracy. They don't seem to love candy as much in the show, and they spend more time maskless than they do in the comics. One major difference is that Hazel escapes with Agnes in the show, while Cha-Cha gets burned up in the apocalyptic flames. In the comics, both are destroyed by Klaus's psychic powers. The show is like a mix between Wes Anderson's Royal Tenenbaums and a series of unfortunate events, with a hint of X-Men. Both the comics and the show portray a family of emotionally broken superheroes who must come together to stop the end of the world. They have internal as well as external battles to contend with, which makes for interesting character arcs. And while it deviated a bit from the Dark Horse comics, it stayed true to the overall plot while adding a modern twist. So what do you think? Did you like the comics or the show better? Tell us in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and follow the things to be the first to see our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.